It had everything. Wolverine as a reluctant leader, a dark future ruled by Sentinels, and the return of the Phoenix. So why did Marvel and Disney kill one of the best X-Men shows ever made, on the biggest cliffhanger in cartoon history? The answer is more complicated than you think, and today we're unpacking the entire story of Wolverine and the X-Men. Let's talk about one of the most beloved Marvel cartoons of the 2000s. A show that had everything: incredible action, mature storytelling, and a central mystery that was just getting started. This was Wolverine and the X-Men, and for one perfect season, it was the best thing on television. Now, this wasn't just a rehash of the iconic 90s series. This was something entirely new. It took the X-Men you thought you knew, the team that felt unbeatable, and completely shattered them from the very first minute. The show opens with a mysterious explosion at the Xavier Institute. When the dust settles, Professor X and Jean Grey are just gone, vanished without a trace. In their absence, the X-Men have given up. They've disbanded. And who's left to pick up the pieces? The one person who hates teams more than anyone: Wolverine. He's forced to become the leader he never wanted to be, trying to reunite a broken family that blames him for what happened. But here's the brilliant twist. Professor X isn't dead. He's comatose in the present, but his mind is awake 20 years in a horrifying future, a world ruled by Sentinels. He can only communicate with Wolverine psychically to try and prevent this apocalypse. This setup was genius. Every mission in the present had immediate consequences for the future timeline. The show built incredible momentum across 26 episodes, weaving together storylines involving the MRD, Genosha, and the looming threat of the Phoenix. The finale was huge. They save the day, they prevent the Sentinel future, but in the final seconds, the timeline shifts into something even worse: the Age of Apocalypse. And then, the screen went black. The show just ended. Fans were left on that brutal cliffhanger for over a decade. Why would a show this acclaimed with a second season already planned get canceled? The truth is complicated, and it all starts with Marvel's ambitious plan to build an entirely new animated universe. To understand why this show vanished, you have to remember the mid-2000s were a strange time for Marvel animation. The glory days of the 90s were long gone, and the MCU hadn't started yet. It was a creative Wild West. The biggest mutant show on the block, X-Men Evolution, had just wrapped its final season in 2003. While beloved, its high school drama take on the X-Men left a huge void for fans wanting something with more bite. Evolution was a great show, but it was definitely a kid's show. Marvel knew their audience was growing up. They needed something that could appeal to the teenagers and adults who read the comics and loved the movies. Enter Craig Kyle and Greg Johnson. These guys were Marvel insiders who had worked on projects across the board. They saw the opportunity to create a version of the X-Men that was darker, more complex, and dramatically more mature. Their pitch was simple: let's treat this like a premium cable drama, not a Saturday morning cartoon. They wanted to tackle themes of loss, responsibility, and failure in a way Marvel animation had never done before. They drew huge inspiration from Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men comic run. That series brought the X-Men back to their superhero roots, but with modern, character-driven storytelling. It was the perfect blueprint. This meant the Xavier Institute wasn't just a school anymore. The show's core idea was to present it as a home, a sanctuary, and then have it utterly destroyed in the first few minutes. This wasn't a reboot, it was a reckoning. So the central conflict wasn't hero versus villain. It was about a family breaking apart. Every character is scattered, dealing with their own trauma. The entire first season is about picking up the pieces. This tonal shift was intentional. They were aiming for the audience of Batman the Animated Series and Justice League Unlimited, fans who wanted sophisticated stories that respected their intelligence. But here's the secret master plan. Wolverine and the X-Men wasn't supposed to be a standalone show. It was meant to be the cornerstone of a brand new, interconnected Marvel animated universe. The first major clue was the direct-to-DVD movie Hulk vs. One half was Hulk vs. Thor, and the other was Hulk vs. Wolverine, which was a direct prequel to this series, using the same voice actors and designs. This shared universe was Marvel's big play. You had the spectacular Spider-Man airing around the same time, and the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes was already in development. It was the dawn of a new golden age. For the first time since the 90s, there was a unified vision. Characters could cross over, stories could intertwine. This X-Men show was supposed to be the anchor, the series that proved this entire concept could work. And at the center of it all, they placed their most bankable asset. Let's be real, Wolverine's popularity in the 2000s was absolutely insane. The X-Men movies had made him a global superstar. He wasn't just a member of the X-Men. To the general public, he was the X-Men. His solo movie, X-Men Origins Wolverine, was right around the corner. Putting him front and center was the smartest marketing decision they could make. The show's title alone tells you everything. It's not the Uncanny X-Men. It's Wolverine and the X-Men. He gets top billing. This was a deliberate choice to leverage his star power and pull in a massive audience. Now, a lot of hardcore comic fans rolled their eyes. Another Wolverine-centric story? It felt like a safe commercial decision. And you know what? It absolutely was. But that's not the whole story. Because by forcing the ultimate loner into a leadership role, the writers stumbled upon gold. It created a brand new dynamic the team had never truly explored in animation before. He was the last person who wanted the job, and that reluctance became the emotional core of the entire series. His journey from cynical brawler to a genuinely capable, caring leader is the show's single greatest character arc. It's what makes everything work. What started as a marketing gimmick accidentally became the show's greatest strength. It gave the story a clear focus and a protagonist whose internal struggle mirrored the team's external one, trying to put a broken family back together. This unique leadership dynamic was the engine that drove the whole story. But to truly understand how it all came together, we need to go back to the very beginning and look at the cataclysmic event that forced this new reality into existence. This series doesn't ease you in. It starts with an absolute bang. The very first scene is a mysterious, devastating psychic attack on the Xavier Institute, culminating in a massive explosion. When the dust settles, the school is destroyed. But worse, two of the most powerful telepaths on the planet, Professor X and Jean Grey, are just gone. Vanished. The team believes they're dead. This wasn't just losing a headquarters, it was the complete destruction of their home and their family. The central pillars of the X-Men were ripped away without any warning or explanation. Then the show does something bold. It jumps forward one entire year. The X-Men are officially disbanded. Everyone has gone their separate ways, dealing with the trauma in their own destructive ways. Cyclops is an absolute wreck, consumed by his grief over losing Jean. Storm has returned to Africa. Kitty is trying to get to Genosha. The family is completely and utterly fractured. The only one left is Beast, who remains at the ruins of the mansion like a lonely guardian of a forgotten tomb. It's a powerful visual that shows just how far they've all fallen. And Wolverine? He's doing what he always does when things fall apart. He runs. We find him on a train, trying to escape his past and forget the family he failed to protect. But trouble always finds him. He can't even get 5 minutes of peace before the MRD shows up. The Mutant Response Division are this show's version of government-sanctioned mutant hunters, and they are relentless. Logan is forced to pop his claws not for himself, but to save a young mutant girl and her family. It's the first spark of the hero we know is still in there, buried under all that guilt. And then, in the middle of all this chaos, he gets a psychic message. A voice in his head he thought he'd never hear again. It's Professor Xavier. But that's impossible, right? This is where the show drops its single greatest hook. The professor isn't dead. He's been in a coma this entire time, his mind separated from his body by the blast. But here's the kicker. His body is in the present day, but his consciousness woke up 20 years in the future, an apocalyptic wasteland ruled by giant sentinels. This isn't some random alternate reality. This horrifying future is the direct consequence of the attack on the mansion. Without the X-Men, humanity's fear and hatred were allowed to run wild. From this desolate future, Xavier is desperately reaching back through time. But his psychic messages are weak, and there's only one mind strong enough and stubborn enough to receive them: Logan. His healing factor makes his mind a fortress, constantly rebuilding itself against psychic intrusion. That natural defense makes him the only person Xavier can safely contact without shattering their psyche. So the mission is set. Logan has to prevent this future from ever happening. And the only way to do that is to reunite the X-Men and find out who attacked them in the first place. This dual timeline premise is genius. It's not just about fighting villains week to week. Every single action has immense stakes. They are literally fighting to save the future of the world. And who does Xavier put in charge of this monumental task? The one man who hates taking orders and despises responsibility. Wolverine has to become the new leader of the X-Men. The ultimate loner, the guy who always works best alone, is now tasked with being a father figure to a team of broken, grieving heroes. He has to be the glue that holds them all together. This internal conflict is the true heart of the series. Watching Logan struggle with the weight of Xavier's trust versus his own self-destructive instincts is absolutely compelling television. He has his orders directly from the future. He knows what's at stake. But before he can save the world, Wolverine has to do something even harder. He has to get the band back together. So with the professor gone and the team in shambles, the first major arc of the show becomes a global manhunt. Logan and Beast hop in the Blackbird and start tracking down their old family, one by one. But this isn't a happy reunion tour, it's a series of desperate heists. And Wolverine is the worst possible person for this job. He can't give a big, hopeful speech like Charles. He just shows up, growls, and tells them to get back to work. He has to convince a family that feels completely abandoned to trust him again. Thankfully, his first recruit is the easiest. Hank McCoy, the Beast, never left. He's been holding down the fort, trying to piece together what happened. He doesn't need convincing, he just needs a leader. He's the loyal anchor this mission desperately needs. Their first mission together is a literal prison break. Kitty Pryde, Shadowcat, is being held by the MRD, the Mutant Response Division. She's not disillusioned, she's just captured. This is a straightforward rescue, a perfect first test for the new partnership. Then you have Warren Worthington, Angel. He's taken the complete opposite path. He's using his immense wealth to try and cure the X gene, seeing his own wings as a disease. He's embraced his father's anti-mutant prejudice as a form of self-preservation. Getting Angel back requires Logan to remind him that his mutation isn't a curse. It's a gift he once used to save people. It's a powerful moment that shows Logan can be more than just muscle. He can actually reignite the spark of heroism in others. But then things get really complicated. Take Iceman. Bobby Drake isn't the wisecracking hero we know. He's a terrified kid living at home with parents who fear him. His powers are out of control, a constant source of stress and destruction. Wolverine doesn't recruit Bobby, he rescues him. The MRD is closing in, and his own family is about to turn him in. Logan has to show him that the mansion is the only safe place left for someone like him. It's a harsh but necessary truth. And then there's Storm. This is one of the most interesting takes on her character ever. She hasn't just gone home to Africa. She's become a literal weather goddess, worshipped by a local tribe and cut off from the outside world. Logan's approach here is brutal. He straight up tells her she's running away from her real responsibility. He calls her out for choosing to be a big fish in a small pond instead of fighting the real battles. It's a massive gamble that nearly gets him killed. But there's a darker secret at play. It's not just Storm's ego. She's being manipulated by the Shadow King, a psychic entity feeding her power and isolating her from her friends. She's a puppet and she doesn't even realize it. Defeating him forces Aurora to choose. Is she a goddess or is she an X-Man? Her return to the team isn't just about coming home, it's about reclaiming her true identity. It's one of the best subplots in the entire series. But the absolute hardest sell is Rogue, and this is where the show gets bold. She hasn't just quit the team, she's joined the enemy. She's a full-fledged member of the Brotherhood of Mutants, fighting alongside Avalanche and Blob. This feels like a total betrayal, but from her perspective, the X-Men betrayed her first. The show makes it painfully clear she felt abandoned and alone after the attack. The Brotherhood offered her a home when the X-Men couldn't. Wolverine's attempts to reach her are heartbreaking. Every time he tries, she shuts him down hard. She sees him and the X-Men as a failed experiment, one that promised her a family and then left her with nothing. Her storyline is the emotional core of this first arc. She isn't just a mission objective, she's a walking, talking symbol of their greatest failure. Rogue is the one that got away, and her absence haunts the newly formed team. And that's the genius of this whole recruitment arc. Each episode isn't just about finding a person, it's about exploring the deeply personal cost of being a mutant in this world. It's not an adventure, it's a burden. You have family rejection with Iceman, self-loathing with Angel, the corrupting influence of power with Storm, and profound, bitter isolation with Rogue. It's a gallery of pain, and the show never shies away from it. This series makes one thing absolutely clear: being an X-Man sucks. It's not about cool costumes and public adoration. It's about sacrifice, loss, and the constant struggle to do the right thing in a world that hates you for existing. That realistic, grounded approach is what sets this show apart. The powers are a problem to be managed, a curse that isolates them from humanity. This isn't a power fantasy, it's a survival story. And that's precisely why Wolverine is the perfect leader for this version of the X-Men. Who understands pain, loss, and being an outcast better than Logan? He can't inspire them with hope, but he can teach them how to endure. So by the end of this massive recruitment drive, the X-Men are back. But they're not the team you remember. They're fractured, scarred, and deeply mistrustful of each other and their new leader. This is a team built on desperation, not ideals. And at the center of it all is Logan. Not a teacher or a father figure, but a reluctant drill sergeant. He's holding this broken family together with stubbornness and sheer willpower because he knows he's their last best hope. And they're gonna need every ounce of that willpower. Because while Logan is desperately trying to fix the present, Professor X is trapped, psychically screaming and witnessing the horrifying future they are all fighting to prevent. So while Logan is busy getting the band back together, the show introduces the storyline that makes it absolutely required viewing. We're not just watching the present, we're watching the catastrophic future that they're desperately trying to prevent. If you're thinking, oh, this is just Days of Future Past again, you are dead wrong. This isn't a timeline where mutants are just oppressed. This is a timeline where humanity is functionally extinct, and mutants are nothing more than fuel for the machine. 20 years from the main story, the world is a graveyard. Cities are hollowed out husks patrolled by legions of advanced sentinels. The sky is perpetually red, choked with the smoke of forgotten wars. There is no safe place left. The few remaining humans are either collaborators or hiding in the shadows. Most were wiped out in the war against the Sentinels. This isn't a mutant problem anymore, it's an extinction-level event for the entire planet. And the mutants? They're hunted down and thrown into processing centers that are basically death camps. They're fitted with inhibitor collars, stripped of their identities, and used as living batteries or for horrific experiments. And who's running this whole nightmare? Not a person. Not Magneto. It's Master Mold, a supreme intelligence born from the Sentinel program. This is the show's true antagonist, a cold, logical AI that sees all organic life as a problem to be managed. Master Mold isn't just a big robot, it's a planetary intelligence. It controls everything from the weather to the global surveillance network. It's a thinking, calculating god that has already won. What makes Master Mold so terrifying is its complete lack of malice. It's not evil, it's efficient. It doesn't hate mutants, it just views them as a variable that must be controlled for maximum order. That's so much scarier than a mustache-twirling villain. But even in this hopeless future, there is a resistance. A small, desperate cell of surviving X-Men operating from the shadows. This isn't the A-Team you know. This is a squad of hardened survivors. Leading them is Professor Xavier himself, confined to an advanced life support hover chair. He's no longer a gentle teacher. He's a grim, pragmatic military commander. The weight of all this failure has completely changed him. His field team includes familiar faces like Bishop, the time-traveling cop who is perfectly at home in this war zone. And then there's Domino, whose luck-based powers are the only reason they've survived this long. Rounding out the team are characters like Berserker, a lesser-known Morlock, and a telepath named Hellion. It's a ragtag group of C-listers, which just hammers home how many of the heavy hitters have already fallen. Xavier's entire plan hinges on one desperate gamble, telepathically contacting the X-Men in the past. He needs to warn them, to guide them, to prevent the single event that sets this horrible future in motion. And these future sequences are brutal. They exist to constantly remind us of the stakes. Every time the present-day team argues or fails, we see the direct consequence. Another attack, another loss in the future. There is zero plot armor in this timeline. The showrunners use these scenes to show you that anyone can die. The future team is constantly on the run, taking heavy losses, and their missions are often suicide runs. This was dark for a kid's cartoon. The color palette is all reds and blacks, the music is oppressive, and the dialogue is filled with desperation. It felt more like watching The Terminator than a Saturday morning X-Men show. One of the most shocking moments is seeing Polaris, Magneto's daughter, as a giant sentinel. She was captured, experimented on, and turned into a puppet for Master Mold. It's absolutely chilling. The show was not afraid to kill characters on screen in this timeline. We see members of the future resistance get captured or straight up disintegrated by Sentinels. It established that failure was a very real, very final possibility. Xavier's messages to the past are the only glimmer of hope. He can't give them a roadmap, only cryptic warnings about key events. He's essentially trying to perform psychic surgery on the entire timeline. And this creates the show's coolest narrative device, the ripple effect. Whenever Wolverine's team succeeds in the past, we see the future instantly change around Xavier's team, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. But it's never enough. They might prevent one Sentinel from being built and the future just shifts slightly. The sky might turn from red to orange for a few minutes. It's a constant grinding battle where victory is measured in inches. Worse, sometimes their actions in the past have unintended consequences. Saving one mutant might lead to a different, more advanced Sentinel being created in its place. They are fighting a war on two fronts, separated by 20 years. This all builds the central mystery of the season. What is the one event Xavier needs them to stop? What is the single linchpin that creates Master Mold and dooms the entire world? The show masterfully builds this tension across every episode. Honestly, this dual timeline structure was a storytelling masterclass. It gave the present-day Monster of the Week plots an overarching sense of purpose and urgency that no other X-Men show has ever matched. This future wasn't just a possible outcome, it was presented as an inevitable one. Master Mold wasn't a villain they could just punch, it was a concept, an eventuality they had to outthink and outmaneuver across time itself. It's what made the show so compelling. You weren't just watching to see if they could save a senator, you were watching to see if they could save reality. The fate of everything rested on their shoulders and they didn't even know the full picture. But while the X-Men were unknowingly fighting a war for the future, they had to survive the present first. And their path to preventing this apocalypse was blocked by a whole host of classic, fan-favorite villains determined to tear them apart. Because while the future was a constant looming threat, the present day was an absolute chaotic mess. The MRD and their Sentinels were the main event, sure, but this show understood that the X-Men's world is packed with villains, and it was determined to show you all of them. This wasn't just a handful of recurring bad guys. This was a genuine rogues gallery pulled straight from the comics. It felt like the writers had a dartboard of classic X-villains and decided to hit every single one. The sheer variety was stunning. First up, you have to talk about the Brotherhood of Mutants. They weren't just Magneto's lackeys here, they were a legitimate force with their own agenda. They were street level, scrappy, and always causing trouble for the X-Men. And leading them was Quicksilver, who was playing a fascinating double game. He's working for his father Magneto, but also trying to run this chaotic team of misfits. You never quite knew where his true loyalties were, which made him incredibly compelling. The roster was classic. You had the immovable Blob, the sycophantic Toad, and the earth-shaking Avalanche. Later, they even brought in Domino, adding a whole new layer of espionage and unpredictability to the team's dynamic. What made them great was that they weren't just mindless thugs. The show gave them goals, even if those goals were just about getting paid or causing chaos. They were a constant thorn in the X-Men's side, a perfect B-plot to the main Sentinel story. But then the show took a hard left turn into pure, glorious absurdity with Mojo. I'm telling you, the episode Excalibur is one of the most perfect adaptations of Mojo World ever put to screen. It completely nails the satire of reality television. Mojo himself is just perfection. He's this grotesque, spineless producer obsessed with ratings and viewer engagement. He captures the exact energy from the comics, both hilarious and genuinely dangerous in his pursuit of the ultimate show. The whole episode is a non-stop action spectacle, forcing Nightcrawler and a depowered team into a deadly game show. It was a brilliant way to isolate characters and test them in a totally alien environment, far from the usual Sentinel fights. And you can't have Mojo without his #1 enforcer, Spiral. In a show full of great designs, Spiral's might be the best. The 6 arms, the chaotic magic, the cold, calculating personality, she was instantly memorable. Unlike Mojo, Spiral wasn't a joke. She was a serious physical and mystical threat. Her fight scenes were incredible, a whirlwind of blades and sorcery that pushed the X-Men to their absolute limit. She was genuinely terrifying. The show also did a great job of keeping her mysterious. We knew she worked for Mojo, but her motivations felt deeper. There was a history there, a sense of tragedy that the series was just beginning to uncover before it was canceled. Beyond the big names, the show delighted in pulling out deep-cut villains. This is where you can tell the creators were massive fans. They weren't just playing the hits, they were exploring the entire back catalog of X-Men lore. We got the Reavers. These cyborg mercenaries show up to hunt Wolverine, and it's a brutal knockdown, drag-out fight. It was a pure dose of Wolverine's solo comic history dropped right into the main show, and it worked perfectly. Then there was Sauron, the energy vampire pterodactyl man. His episode was a fantastic Monster of the Week story that showed the team dealing with a threat that was both tragic and utterly bizarre. It felt like a classic Silver Age comic brought to life. The show didn't stop there. We got brief appearances from the Fenris twins, hints at Omega Red, and even a reference to the Shadow King. It was a treasure trove for anyone who's ever picked up an X-Men comic. And these episodes did something crucial. They fleshed out the world. They proved that not every problem was a world-ending apocalypse. Sometimes the X-Men just had to stop a bank robbery or fight a dinosaur man. This variety gave the main plot room to breathe. It let us see the team interact in lower stakes situations, building their relationships and showcasing different members' abilities without the constant dread of the Sentinels. It also demonstrated the team's versatility. One week they're fighting future robots, the next they're on a pirate ship, and the week after they're trapped in a game show. This team could handle anything, and the show wasn't afraid to prove it. All these different villains and scenarios made the world feel alive. It wasn't just a backdrop for one story. It was a living, breathing version of the Marvel Universe where anything could happen. You truly never knew who would show up next. And the best part is that it never felt random. Many of these villains were subtly connected to the larger plot. The MRD, the Brotherhood, the Acolytes, they were all pieces of a much larger puzzle that was slowly coming together. But the ultimate fan service moment, the biggest chef's kiss to the comic fans, came in a brief, shocking cameo. We see the Marauders report back to their shadowy master, and for just a second, we see him, Mr. Sinister. His appearance promised a huge storyline for Season 2. The cloning, the obsession with the Summers bloodline, it was all on the table. This one tiny scene sent comic fans into a frenzy. It was a masterclass in building hype for the future. This incredible rogues gallery showed the many chaotic forces the X-Men fought. But not every enemy was a monster or a mad scientist. The most dangerous threats were often ideologies, led by figures who believed they were the heroes. And one was building a mutant paradise. After facing a parade of classic villains, the show introduces its true antagonist. Not a person, but an entire nation. This is the Genosha arc, and it is without a doubt the absolute heart of this season, elevating the series from a simple Monster of the Week cartoon to something far more ambitious. And at the center of it all is Magneto, but this isn't the mustache-twirling villain you remember from the 90s. The show completely reinvents him. He's not a terrorist, he's a statesman, a king, building a sanctuary for his people brick by painful brick. His offer is dangerously simple. Come to Genosha and you will be safe. No more hiding, no more fear, no more persecution from humanity. For mutants hounded their entire lives, this wasn't just an offer, it was salvation. A paradise built just for them. We see mutants from all over the world flocking to his banner. Characters like Blob, Pyro, and Colossus aren't just his muscle, they're his citizens. They believe in his vision because the alternative is a world that absolutely hates them. But the show never lets you get comfortable. It constantly asks, is this utopia worth the price? Magneto demands absolute loyalty. His peace is maintained through an iron will and the constant threat of his immense power. It's a paradise with a very, very high fence. His acolytes aren't just guards, they're true believers who enforce his vision. They patrol the borders and deal with dissent, showing us that even in a supposed paradise, there's still a very clear power structure. And Magneto is always at the top. The political tension feels incredibly real. The United Nations doesn't know what to do. Is Genosha a sovereign nation or a rogue state housing the most powerful weapons on Earth? Every scene involving world leaders feels grounded and genuinely stressful. And fueling this fire is Senator Robert Kelly. His anti-mutant rhetoric is more than just background noise. It's the direct cause of Genosha's popularity. Every hateful speech he gives drives hundreds more mutants into Magneto's waiting arms. He's Magneto's best recruiter. The X-Men are caught in the middle. They can't support Magneto's militant separatism, but they also can't side with a world that wants to destroy them. This conflict forces the team to question everything Xavier taught them about peaceful coexistence. It feels impossible. This entire conflict is crystallized through the eyes of Nightcrawler. He initially sees Genosha as a potential haven, a place where he won't be judged for his appearance. His journey to the island is one of hope, making his eventual disillusionment even more tragic. And on Genosha, he finds Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch. This is one of the best portrayals of Wanda ever. She's not just Magneto's daughter, she's his conscience, his second in command, and the one person who truly understands the burden of his dream. Her relationship with her father is the emotional core of this arc. She loves him and believes in his goal, but she is terrified of his methods. You see the constant struggle within her, wanting to protect her people but fearing the monster her father might become. Wanda and Nightcrawler's connection is immediate. He sees the good in her, the person trapped beneath the weight of Genosha's politics. Their relationship provides a crucial glimmer of hope in an otherwise dark and cynical storyline. You desperately want them to succeed. Of course, Quicksilver is there to mess everything up. He's portrayed as fiercely loyal to his father's vision, but also deeply jealous of Wanda's importance. His arrogance and rash decisions constantly undermine the fragile peace Magneto is trying to build. Nightcrawler's optimism begins to fade as he sees the truth. He witnesses mutants being imprisoned for minor infractions. He sees the fear in people's eyes when they disagree with Magneto. The beautiful dream of Genosha starts looking more and more like a nightmare. The introduction of the mutant Dust is a key turning point. She just wants to live peacefully, but Magneto's regime tries to force her into their conflict. It's a powerful statement. You're either with Magneto completely, or you are the enemy. Magneto's paranoia grows. He demands that all mutants on the island submit to his rule without question. He makes it clear that leaving Genosha is not an option. The open invitation has become a mandatory sentence. The doors are now locked from the outside. And then comes the devastating reveal. Genosha isn't a sanctuary. It's a cage. Magneto has created a prison where he is the warden, all under the guise of protection. It's a brilliant, tragic twist that recontextualizes everything we've seen. Nightcrawler has to fight his way out. The very place he came to for safety becomes the most dangerous place on Earth for him. His escape is a desperate, high-stakes sequence that proves just how far Magneto is willing to go to maintain control. This forces Wanda to make an impossible choice. Does she stand with her father and his tyrannical methods, or does she help the man she's grown to care for? Her decision to help Nightcrawler escape is a huge moment of defiance against her father. Magneto's reaction is terrifying. Seeing his own daughter betray him sends him into a fury. He feels utterly alone, convinced now more than ever that force is the only language the world understands. Any shred of compromise is gone. After this betrayal, Magneto prepares for full-scale war. He declares Genosha a hostile power and begins mobilizing his forces. The dream of a peaceful sanctuary is officially dead, replaced by the promise of mutant supremacy through global conflict. This is exactly the excuse Senator Kelly and the MRD were waiting for. They can now paint Genosha not as a refugee camp, but as a military threat. The Sentinel program is fast-tracked, and the world braces for a war that feels absolutely inevitable. What makes this so tragic is that for a moment, Genosha almost worked. The show gave us a glimpse of a world where mutants could be safe. Watching that dream curdle into a dictatorship is one of the most mature and devastating themes in the entire series. And then, it happens. Just as Magneto is at his most isolated and aggressive, the Sentinels attack. But they don't attack Washington or New York. They go straight for Genosha. The timing is brutally, horribly perfect. The attack on Genosha is one of the most devastating sequences in Western animation. It's not a clean fight. It is a one-sided slaughter. The paradise Magneto built is turned into a fiery hellscape in a matter of minutes. We see Magneto, the most powerful mutant on the island, completely overwhelmed. He throws everything he has at the Sentinels, but there are too many. For the first time, he isn't a king or a god. He is just a man desperately trying to save his people. In the chaos, both Scarlet Witch and his other daughter Lorna Dane, Polaris, are caught in a massive explosion. Magneto can only watch in horror as his entire family is seemingly wiped out. It is the absolute worst moment of his life. The X-Men arrive to a scene of total annihilation. The dream of Genosha is gone, leaving only rubble and survivors. Magneto is broken, his nation destroyed, and his family lost. It's a hollow, bitter victory for no one. But this devastating attack wasn't just the MRD flexing its muscles. The timing was too perfect, the strategy too precise. This was a calculated move, orchestrated by a secret player to remove Magneto from the board. A player operating from the shadows, the sinister Hellfire Club. So while Magneto was building his island nation and Sentinels were a constant public menace, the most dangerous threat was already inside the X-Mansion. It wasn't a robot or a rival, it was a conspiracy hiding in plain sight. This is where Emma Frost, the White Queen, makes her grand entrance. The show absolutely nails her introduction. She's powerful, impossibly elegant, and carries an aura of danger that's immediately captivating. She offers the X-Men a deal they can't refuse. She'll use her incredible telepathic abilities to help locate Jean Grey. On the surface, it seems like a necessary alliance, but her true motives are deeply hidden. Because Emma isn't just a powerful mutant looking for redemption, she has a secret agenda. Every action, every word is part of a much larger, more sinister plan that the X-Men are completely oblivious to. The truth? She's a high-ranking member of the inner circle of the Hellfire Club. This isn't some street-level gang. This is a secret society of the wealthiest and most influential mutants on the planet. Led by the formidable Sebastian Shaw, their goal is simple: world domination. But their method is anything but. They don't want to fight the humans. They want to secretly control them from the shadows. And Emma's specific mission for the club is monumental. She's not just there to find Jean. She's there to locate and help the Hellfire Club capture the Phoenix Force, the cosmic entity inside of her. This is where the story gets incredibly complex. To get closer to her goal, Emma forms a bond with Scott Summers. It's one of the most compelling and tragic relationships in the entire series. She connects with him over their shared loss of Jean, offering him a telepathic comfort that no one else can. But it's a poisoned chalice. She's exploiting his grief for her own gain, and it is heartbreaking to watch. The brilliant part is the show makes you wonder, is her connection to Scott purely manipulation? Or does she start to develop genuine feelings? This ambiguity makes her character absolutely fascinating. And that's the key to Emma's portrayal here. She is not a straightforward villain. The writers refuse to make it that easy for us. She's the definition of a morally ambiguous character. There are multiple episodes where Emma genuinely helps the team. She saves their lives, offers crucial strategic advice, and even trains the younger mutants. She's an effective, if icy, member of the X-Men. This creates an unbearable tension in every scene she's in. You're constantly on the edge of your seat waiting for the other shoe to drop. Is this the moment she betrays them all? Or is she actually changing sides? Wolverine, of course, never trusts her. Not for a second. His instincts are screaming that something is wrong, but he can't prove it. This dynamic creates some of the best character friction in the show. Emma's secret weapon inside the mansion are the Stepford Cuckoos. These three telepathic sisters act as her eyes and ears, reporting everything back to the Hellfire Club. They are her perfect, unassuming spies. She is playing the ultimate long game. Every mission, every conversation is a calculated move to position herself closer to the Phoenix. It's a masterful, patient, and absolutely ruthless strategy. But then the show throws you a curveball, a moment of genuine sincerity. She'll protect a student or share a real moment of vulnerability with Scott, and you'll start to believe she might actually be redeemed. In many ways, she's a twisted reflection of Professor X. Both are powerful telepaths who want to guide mutant kind, but their methods and morals are diametrically opposed. It's a brilliant thematic parallel. Meanwhile, the Hellfire Club is getting impatient. Sebastian Shaw doesn't care about Emma's internal conflicts. He wants results, and he puts immense pressure on her to deliver the Phoenix no matter the cost. And let's not forget Selene, the Black Queen. She's always watching Emma, waiting for her to slip up. Selene represents the purely evil, power-hungry side of the club, a dark mirror to Emma's own wavering loyalties. The entire conspiracy is a house of cards, built on lies and manipulation. And as the season progresses, you can feel it getting closer and closer to collapsing. The only question is who will be buried in the rubble. There are tiny moments where the mask slips. A stray thought Wolverine almost catches, a piece of information she shouldn't know. The show expertly sprinkles these clues, making the eventual reveal feel completely earned. And the X-Men are too distracted to see it. They're dealing with Genosha, the MRD, Mojo. They have a dozen external threats. They never suspect the greatest danger is one of their own. As Emma gets closer to locating Jean, the plan accelerates. The Hellfire Club begins to move its pieces into place. There's a palpable sense of a ticking clock, counting down to a disaster. Finally, all the elements are aligned. Emma has located the Phoenix. The X-Men trust her, mostly. The Cuckoos are in position. The stage is set for the ultimate betrayal. And then it happens. The reveal of her true allegiance is an absolute gut punch. It's not just a plot twist, it's an emotional betrayal of the highest order, especially for Scott. She turns on the team. In one devastating sequence, she systematically disables the X-Men, revealing that her loyalty was always with the Hellfire Club. It's a jaw-dropping moment. The show commits to the betrayal. There's no last-minute change of heart. At this moment, she is the villain. She chooses power, she chooses the Hellfire Club, and she damns the X-Men. And the worst part? The plan succeeds. The Hellfire Club uses Emma's betrayal to put their grand design into motion. They aren't trying to destroy the Phoenix, they're trying to unleash it. This entire conspiracy, this deep cover operation, was all for one purpose: to force Jean Grey out of hiding. Because by capturing her friends, the Hellfire Club has finally triggered what they wanted all along. The Hellfire Club's conspiracy wasn't just about blackmail or control. Their ultimate goal was raw, untamed power, and they knew exactly where to find it. Because the greatest power in the world was always Jean Grey. The entire season revolves around one singular, agonizing question: where is Jean? The show masterfully keeps you guessing. Is she captured? Is she in hiding? Every breadcrumb, every psychic message from the future only deepens the mystery. Wolverine's visions from Professor X aren't just warnings, they are a ticking clock. They make it painfully clear that finding Jean isn't just a mission, it's about preventing the apocalypse. And then they find her. Not in some supervillain lair, but in a mundane hospital, living a perfectly normal life with no powers. The gut punch twist? Complete amnesia. She doesn't remember Scott. She doesn't remember being a mutant. She doesn't remember anything. It's a devastating character reset. This instantly creates brilliant conflict. Scott is desperate, convinced he can force her to remember through the power of their love. He refuses to accept that his Jean is gone. But Wolverine sees the immense danger. He knows from the future that pushing her too hard, too fast, could unleash something truly terrifying on the world. And this is how the show reintroduces the Phoenix Force. Not with a cosmic bang, but with a quiet, psychological whisper. It is an absolutely masterful slow burn. It starts as nightmares, flashes of fire and destruction. Then it becomes uncontrollable emotional outbursts where her powers lash out without warning. These aren't just random power surges. They're fragments of a much darker, more powerful personality trying to break free from inside her own mind. Here, the show makes a crucial narrative choice. The Phoenix isn't some alien entity that possessed Jean. It's an inherent part of her potential, awakened by trauma. This makes her struggle infinitely more compelling. She isn't fighting a monster that invaded her body, she is fighting herself, a battle she is destined to lose. And who steps in as the apparent savior? Emma Frost. She positions herself as the only telepath sophisticated enough to help Jean navigate this internal chaos. Their psychic therapy sessions are some of the most tense scenes in the entire series. Emma carefully walks a tightrope, slowly gaining Jean's absolute trust. But we know the truth. Every session is a careful manipulation. She isn't healing Jean, she's priming her for the Hellfire Club. Emma is methodically breaking down Jean's mental defenses, not to help her, but to prepare her to become the host for their ultimate weapon. This entire sinister plot is wrapped in one of the best-handled love triangles in Western animation. Scott, Jean, and Emma. It's simply brilliant. Scott's loyalty is tested at every single turn. He's drawn to Emma's strength and support, even while desperately clinging to the memory of Jean. What makes it work so well is that Emma's feelings for Scott feel absolutely genuine. This stops being just a mission for her. It becomes personal. This emotional conflict makes her inevitable betrayal so much more powerful. She's not just betraying the X-Men, she's betraying the one person she might actually love. And as Emma's manipulations dig deeper, the Phoenix gets noticeably stronger. The power displays escalate from subtle psychic tricks to massive feats of telekinesis. We see her go from stopping a falling sign to holding back an entire dam from bursting. The scale of her power grows exponentially with every episode. The other X-Men go from being concerned to being genuinely scared. They realize this is far beyond Jean just getting her old powers back. This is something else. The iconic Phoenix Raptor effect finally begins to manifest around her, a clear visual cue that Jean Grey is losing the battle for her own soul. By the final episodes, the tension is unbearable. The question is no longer if the Phoenix will emerge, but what final push will fully unleash it on the world. The Hellfire Club thinks they can control it, Emma Frost thinks she can manage it, and the X-Men are just desperately trying to survive it. All of these conflicting plans are about to collide, so the Phoenix has returned, and the three-part finale, Foresight, is where every single plot thread from the entire season finally collides. This isn't just an ending, it's a masterclass in long-form storytelling. The Hellfire Club makes its final play. They activate the Stepford Cuckoos, using them as a psychic amplifier to literally rip the Phoenix Force right out of Jean Grey's body. It is a brutal and audacious plan. And here's the crazy part, it works. They successfully separate Jean from the Phoenix. For a single second, Selene and the Hellfire Club think they've actually won. They believe they can contain a cosmic god. But you can't control a hurricane. The unbound Phoenix Force immediately turns on its would-be masters. They get absolutely decimated. It's one of the most satisfying villain takedowns ever. Now free, the Phoenix is just pure, unrestrained power. It has no host, no conscience, just cosmic hunger. It begins tearing Genosha apart, and the X-Men have to face the awful truth. They aren't fighting their friend anymore. They are fighting a force of nature. Every single member of the team throws everything they have at it, and it does nothing. They are completely outmatched. Wolverine tries to get through, calling out to Jean, believing some part of her must be in there, but his voice is lost in the roar of cosmic fire. It's a truly hopeless moment. And this massive energy spike does not go unnoticed. Far away in the dark future, Master Mold sensors go absolutely wild. This is the catalyst it was waiting for. Master Mold calculates that this energy event is the ultimate threat to its existence. So, it makes a decision. Deploy the advanced Sentinels. Not in the future, but in the present. Right now. Suddenly, the skies above Genosha are filled with these futuristic, adaptable Sentinels. They aren't the clunky models the X-Men have fought before. These things are deadly. And just like that, it becomes a three-way war. The X-Men versus the Phoenix, the Sentinels versus all mutants, and Magneto's acolytes versus the Sentinels. It is absolute, glorious chaos. This is the exact future Xavier was sent back to prevent. A massive war between humans, mutants, and machines, with the entire planet as the battleground. And it's all happening at once. The heroes are completely overwhelmed. They can't fight a cosmic entity and an army of future deathbots at the same time. They are losing on all fronts. This looks like the end. And watching all of this is Emma Frost. She sees the destruction, the chaos she helped unleash. Her manipulation, her ambition for the Hellfire Club, it all led to this. She sees Scott fighting desperately to save the woman he loves, the same woman Emma was jealous of. The weight of her guilt becomes unbearable. She knows what she has to do. This is her moment of true heroism. Not as a member of the X-Men, but as someone choosing to fix her own terrible mistake, no matter the cost. It's an incredible character arc. She tells Cyclops to get Jean away from the island, and then she reaches out with her mind, not to fight the Phoenix, but to invite it, to become its new hostage. She opens her mind and pulls the entire cosmic inferno into herself. It is an act of unimaginable psychic power and self-sacrifice. The Phoenix pours into her, overwhelming her completely. Her organic body can't handle the power. To survive, her secondary mutation kicks in, encasing her in her impenetrable diamond form. She becomes a living prison for the Phoenix. The fire dies down. The Phoenix is gone. And all that's left is a silent, diamond statue of Emma Frost, fallen on the battlefield. The battle stops as everyone stares in shock. With the primary threat contained, the X-Men and Magneto's forces can finally focus on the Sentinels. United by a common enemy, they fight back with everything they have left. They dismantle the future machines one by one. It's a hard-fought battle, but they succeed. They saved Jean. They stopped the Hellfire Club. And they defeated the Sentinel invasion. And in the future, Xavier sees the result. The dark, Sentinel-ruled timeline begins to fade. The destruction, the camps, the endless war, it all vanishes into white light. They did it. They actually did it. Professor X's eyes snap open. He's back in the present. He's in the X-Mansion and he can feel his legs. He's no longer in a coma. The timeline has been restored. The team returns, battered but victorious. They see their mentor awake and well. It's a genuinely emotional reunion. They hug, they celebrate. It feels like a truly happy ending. Jean is safe and the Phoenix is contained inside Emma's diamond form, which they bring back to the mansion. The world is saved. Mission accomplished. This could have been the perfect series finale, but as Xavier celebrates with his team, his eyes glow. He's getting one last flash of the future he just erased. But something is wrong. This isn't the past he remembers. He sees a new future, a twisted, horrifying landscape. Pyramids, Egyptian iconography, and a world ruled not by Sentinels, but by a single, all-powerful mutant. A blue-lipped tyrant sitting on a throne with 4 shadowy figures kneeling before him, his horsemen. Xavier doesn't know the name, but we do. This is the Age of Apocalypse. The X-Men didn't just save the future, they broke it. In preventing the rise of the Sentinels, they created a vacuum of power, allowing an even greater evil to take over. Their victory was their biggest mistake. So the Master Mold is destroyed, the future is saved, and the X-Men are finally reunited. This should be the happy ending, the big victory lap we've been waiting for all season. But it's not. Because 20 years in the future, Charles Xavier finally wakes from his coma. But he isn't relieved. He isn't happy. He's screaming in absolute terror. He contacts the X-Men in the present with one final, terrifying warning. He tells them they failed. The future they prevented was bad, but the one they've created is a living nightmare. By taking out the Sentinels, they created a power vacuum. They averted one apocalypse only to pave the way for another. Something far, far worse was waiting in the wings. And then we get the final shot. The world is in ruins, covered in Egyptian iconography, and Xavier's final words hang in the air. An age of apocalypse. For comic fans, this was a gut punch. Apocalypse isn't just another villain. He is an immortal Darwinist, one of the first mutants ever who sees humanity as nothing more than insects to be crushed. This is, without a doubt, one of the most infamous cliffhangers in animation history. To end on such a mind-blowing reveal, promising a story arc fans had dreamed of seeing, and then just stop. It was brutal. And the worst part? This wasn't just a vague tease. Season 2 was already planned. The writers had a Bible, scripts were being written, and the entire creative team was ready to go. The entire season would have been a loose adaptation of the legendary Age of Apocalypse comic storyline. The X-Men would be fighting a losing war in a world completely conquered by this ancient evil. But Apocalypse wouldn't have been the villain from day one. They were building him up. The main antagonist for the first part of the season was slated to be his most loyal servant, the geneticist Mr. Sinister. Sinister's obsession with the Summers and Grey bloodlines would have been a central plot point. We were also confirmed to get more classic mutants, like the powerhouse siblings Colossus and Magic joining the fight. And the time travel shenanigans were only going to get crazier, because the one man who knows how to fight a dystopian future was set to make his grand entrance, the one and only Cable. But it gets even better. The showrunners confirmed they had an entire episode planned that would have introduced Deadpool. We were robbed of seeing this show's take on the Merc with a Mouth years before he became a superstar. This wasn't just going to be another season. It was an evolution. The stakes were higher, the roster was bigger, and the story was heading into one of the most beloved sagas in X-Men history. It would have been legendary. So if the show was a critical success, the story was peak X-Men, and the plans for the future were this epic, why was it all thrown away? What single event could possibly kill a show with this much momentum? So what actually happened? After an ending that epic, a finale that promised the legendary Age of Apocalypse, how could they just stop? The scripts were written, the voice actors were ready. It makes no sense. The answer, as it so often is brutally simple. It wasn't about ratings. It wasn't about quality. It was about money. And more specifically, it was about a mouse with very deep pockets. On August 31st, 2009, the entertainment world was shaken. The Walt Disney Company announced it was acquiring Marvel Entertainment. This was a seismic event that would change pop culture forever. And the price tag? $4 billion. When that kind of money gets thrown around, strategies don't just change, they get thrown out the window. Nothing is safe and everything is reevaluated. Suddenly, Marvel Animation wasn't its own little kingdom anymore. It was a tiny cog in the massive Disney machine, and the new management had a very different vision for the future of their new toy box. Any project greenlit before the acquisition was now considered part of the old guard. Shows like Wolverine and the X-Men, developed under a different regime, were immediately put under a corporate microscope. Remember that amazing shared universe this show is building with Spectacular Spider-Man and Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes? That entire plan was one of the first casualties of the merger. It was completely scrapped. See, the show wasn't solely funded by Marvel. It was a co-production with international financial partners. The Disney acquisition created huge uncertainty, and those partners got very, very nervous. They pulled their financing for season 2, and without that crucial money, production ground to a halt. The show was effectively dead in the water, left without the resources to continue. You might think Disney would swoop in and save it, right? Wrong. Disney had no interest in continuing someone else's project. They wanted to build their own animated universe, completely in-house. The new mandate from the top was crystal clear: synergy. Every single piece of content had to support and promote the burgeoning Marvel Cinematic Universe. That was the only priority. This is why Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes was pushed as the new flagship show. It lined up perfectly with the characters and tone of the upcoming Avengers movie. It was a marketing slam dunk. But the X-Men? Their movie rights were famously held by a rival studio, 20th Century Fox. To Disney's corporate mind, continuing an X-Men cartoon was basically free advertising for their competitor, a complete non-starter. This cold corporate logic is the exact same reason we lost the Spectacular Spider-Man. Sony held Spidey's film rights, so the show was another casualty of this new film-focused strategy. It was a brutal house cleaning. Let that sink in. Two of the most critically acclaimed, fan-adored Marvel cartoons ever were axed in the same corporate reshuffle. It's an absolute tragedy of modern animation, all because of business deals. So let's be absolutely clear. Wolverine and the X-Men was not canceled because of low ratings. In fact, its ratings were great. It wasn't canceled because of poor reviews. Critics loved it. It was canceled because a line item on a spreadsheet didn't align with a new multi-billion-dollar corporate strategy. It was a casualty of a merger, a victim of unfortunate timing. Nothing more, nothing less. The corporate machine may have killed the show, but it could never erase what it accomplished in just 26 episodes. And despite its abrupt end, the show's impact was undeniable, creating a truly lasting legacy. So Disney pulled the plug, but the story doesn't end there. For a show that was technically a failure, its legacy is absolutely massive. One season was all it took to change the entire game. This isn't just a forgotten cartoon. Wolverine and the X-Men became a legendary cult classic, a benchmark that future adaptations are always measured against. It proved quality trumps quantity. The show's impact radiates outwards. You can see its DNA in comics, in video games, and even in the tone of later animated projects. It left a crater that is still felt today. Before this, Wolverine was mostly the hot-headed berserker. This show did something radical. It made him the leader. And not just any leader, but a reluctant, flawed, and deeply compelling one. This was the definitive modern take on Logan. He was forced into a role he never wanted, struggling with the weight of the entire world. It gave him a depth we'd never seen in animation. We saw him strategize, mentor, and even fail. This wasn't just about his claws, it was about his heart. The show understood that his greatest strength was his refusal to give up on his family. Let's talk about the writing. This was a serialized story where every single episode mattered. There were no throwaway monster of the week plots. Everything served the larger narrative. The show never talked down to its audience. It dealt with complex themes, prejudice, loss, and the morality of fighting for the future. It trusted you were smart enough to keep up. The tone was serious. It embraced the darkness inherent in the X-Men's world. Characters had real stakes, felt real pain, and the victories felt earned because the struggle was immense. Here's a hot take. This one season is more consistent than any other X-Men cartoon. Yes, even the 90s series. There is zero filler here. Every episode is essential viewing. Think about it. X-Men the Animated Series had some truly bizarre filler episodes. Evolution took a while to find its footing. This show started at a 10 and never let up. For 26 episodes, we got peak X-Men storytelling. It's a perfectly contained arc that many fans will argue is the single best adaptation of the team's dynamic ever put to screen. The show's aesthetic had a huge influence. The designs were grounded and realistic, a departure from the more stylized looks of the past. They felt like they could exist in our world. This look became a blueprint. You can see echoes of these designs in comics from that era, and even in the more tactical feel of the first X-Men movies. It set a new, more serious visual standard. That grounded tone wasn't just visual, it informed the entire approach to Marvel animation for years. It showed that these stories could be dramatic and emotionally resonant, not just colorful action. And then there's the cliffhanger. Ending on a tease for the Age of Apocalypse, that was both brilliant and cruel. It's the engine that has kept this show alive in fan circles. For over a decade, fans have debated what would have happened next. The forums, the fanfiction, the YouTube comments, that unresolved ending created a permanent mystery that we all want solved. It's the ultimate what-if scenario in cartoon history. A second season could have adapted one of the most iconic comic storylines of all time. The potential was absolutely limitless. But now, there's hope. The massive success of X-Men '97 has completely changed the game. It proved to Disney that there is a ravenous built-in audience for mature X-Men animation. For the first time in forever, a revival doesn't feel like a pipe dream. The creators are willing, the fans are begging for it, and the precedent has been set. The time is now. Ultimately, Wolverine and the X-Men wasn't just another cartoon. It was a perfect season of television that left us wanting more. It stands as a testament to what's possible when creators truly respect the source material. A lesson we'll explore more right after this. And that's the ultimate tragedy of Wolverine and the X-Men. It's not just a great show we lost, it's the perfect blueprint for what a modern X-Men series could be. A masterpiece of potential left completely unfinished. This wasn't a show that failed, it was a show that was killed. A victim of corporate restructuring and Disney's acquisition of Marvel, which put the entire animation slate on ice. A brilliant series cut down in its absolute prime. It proved something nobody thought was possible, that a Wolverine-centric X-Men show could not only work, but be absolutely amazing. He wasn't just a loner, he was a leader, forced to become the very thing he always ran from. Those 26 episodes are a masterclass in serialized storytelling. They took decades of convoluted X-Men lore and made it accessible, emotional, and incredibly compelling. It remains some of the best Marvel animation ever produced, period. And that Age of Apocalypse cliffhanger? It still hurts. This show deserved a second season. It earned its ending. We the fans deserve to see that story through to its epic conclusion. Wolverine and the X-Men is a classic case of a show gone too soon. What other cartoon masterpiece do you think was canceled unfairly? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single one. If you want more deep dives like this one on shows that truly mattered, then do us a huge favor. Smash that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. We have so much more to cover. Join us next time as we tackle another legendary series cut down before its time. Maybe a certain spectacular wall crawler. Until then, stay tuned and keep loving cartoons. This is ToonRecapz signing off. So what do you think? Was this the best X-Men cartoon? Let me know below. And for more deep dives into shows that were gone too soon, make sure you're subscribed. Up next, we're tackling another Marvel classic right here.